Right, Pete? It's like the convention. It's like, excuse me, and like 10 minutes later, fine, yeah. It's like, wow, this is great. All right, Joanna, we all set? I didn't know you were going to be here. This is great. Oh my, and I didn't know. Whoa. I didn't get the memo either. That's amazing. That's cool. Yeah, exactly. I learned a lot from him. Well, first of all, thank you for all being here at the Mountain Mermaid. And for all of you around the world on Zoom, thank you very much for being here to honor Paul Gromkowski. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Derek Barton, batteries not included. A friend of mine turned 60 last month and I sent him a gag gift. It was just a package of batteries and I enclosed a note that simply said, gift not included. Thanks to Pete Gromkowski, I had the pleasure of working with his brother Paul for 15 years at Gold's Gym. Just never know when it hits you. It's like, jeez, wow, man. Thank you for laughing. I don't know where that. Thank you. You know, just so you know, it's amazing. I didn't know it would come right in the beginning, you know? Ah, dang. Anyway, yeah, thanks to Pete. Paul and I had 15 years together. He was the head of franchising for all of Gold's Gym. I was the head of marketing and the motion picture and television division. And we had some good times, didn't we, Pete? We made history together, thanks to you putting us all together. And it really was wonderful. And Joanna, since she knew I emceed all the Gold's Gym conventions for many years, she asked me to MC this. And even though this is a tough gig, let me tell you, but I'm honored, Joanna, definitely honored. And the way I look at it is those years that I would MC those conventions, because it really was Pete and Paul's convention. Coming from the entertainment business, I was just up there to try to make people feel good and laugh. But it was always great when I would hear Paul laugh out loud, right? He had such a great sense of humor, and 2,000 people in the audience, but sitting on the front row was Paul laughing, and that made me feel good. And I don't know how you all feel today, but I feel he's with us in the best seat of the house, and I'd like to make him laugh and smile again. So I want to celebrate his life, because there's some great people here. After meeting the sisters, oh my God, you guys made me feel good. You really did. Thank you so very much. And it's a great family, the Gromkowskis. I remember your dad would come to the gym and just walk around taking care of things. And I saw him bend down to pick up a dime that was on the floor. And he walked over to the front counter and he put it on the counter. He says, put this behind the counter. And I said, Mr. G, that was amazing. Why'd you do that? He said, it doesn't belong to me. I was like, damn, man. That's pretty cool. So a lot of integrity, a lot of character in the Gromkowski family, and also a great sense of humor. I mean, Paul, up until his death, would email me some great jokes. He really would. And I was thinking one he emailed me, and it was about a guy who died, and he goes up to heaven, and he's talking to St. Peter, and he wants to get in, and St. Peter's looking over his list of his life, and he said, I don't see any good deeds that you've done here. I can't let you in. The guy says, are you kidding me? I came out of a bar And I go into my car, and there's a group of Hell's Angels giving this woman a hard time. And I went up to the biggest Hell's Angel. And I said, hey, why don't you pick on somebody your own size? And St. Peter goes, oh my God, that's wonderful. When did that happen? 5 minutes ago? And I appreciate it. He made me smile. He made me laugh. And, it's like we sit here and when I got the email from Joanna that, Paul had passed away on April 1st, you know how you just don't want to believe it? And of course, the comedian in me is like, oh, April 1st, Paul's faking it. Right? I'm like, that's what I was hoping for. I didn't want my friend to go. I'm like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden the phone rings. It's Joanna, but I didn't know it was Joanna. I look at my iPhone and it says Paul Grimkowski. I'm like, that son of a bitch. Holy shit. That's a joke I would do, but I didn't think Paul would pull that off. April Fool's, Derek. And I'm looking at that Paul Grimkowski and I go, holy shit, this is unbelievable. And then I thought, whoa, wait a minute. What if he's calling from? And then I thought of, that conversation. Hello? Derek? Yeah? This is God. Paul wants to say hi. Wow, you got great internet connection. God, am I in your favorites? But it was Joanna, and we had a great conversation. And like how you go on automatic pilot? Hey, Joanna, how you doing? Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. But she was a trooper. She was so good. And she said, hey, Derek, I need your help. You were the PR guy at Gold's. I want to get his obituary out to the fitness publications, if you don't mind. Yeah, no problem. And all the Gold's Gym, family around the world that, Paul knew. Yeah, Joanna, whatever you need. And it was like, it was a great conversation. And it was what's beautiful about this is we're all here for you, Joanna, because we love your man. And when Joanna and I came here a couple of weeks ago, I said, I always like to see the venue, can you show it to me? Sure. So we came in here, and Bill Berge, are you here? Bill is the man that owns this. Oh, there he is. Bill. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here. They are such good friends with Joanna and Paul that they opened this place up to them, and we want to thank you very much for that. Yeah. And what's amazing about this, Bill was telling me the history of this, and I wrote some things down. It's just amazing. During this, I'm not making this up, during World War II, this was a gambling house and a brothel, which I know a lot of you guys are saying, wow, I knew I felt comfortable in here. Saw one guy just lean over to his wife, hey, I was only here an hour one night. But now it's a first-class Airbnb. They have world-class musicians here. Photographers come from all over the world to photograph this place. They have meetings, weddings, memorials, and it's a horticultural garden. If you've had a chance to look around, it's just amazing. But it's dedicated to the preservation of its architectural culture and natural history. And I thought that was perfect for Paul, because I think we should preserve his legacy. Because when you think about it, what this man did, he helped his brother Pete build the largest international co-ed gym chain. The largest international co-ed gym chain, 600 locations around the world in 43 states, 27 countries, with 3 million members. That's one hell of a legacy. And Paul, besides that, he was even so much more. As you will hear his family and friends speak, and it's just so wonderful that you're here to honor that man, to be here with Joanna, and it's only fitting to bring up Joanna.
Thank you, Neil.
And I'm the support system.
Yes, this is my lifetime best friend, Jennifer, and she always supports me, so she's here to give me strength during this time. So, you know, it's amazing to me to look out here and just see Polly's world is all right here. The most important people. It's amazing. Polly told so many stories. It was one of his favorite things to do. And of course, he told lots of them over and over and over. But, you know, that's how it goes. But if I had to recite them all, we'd be here till, 2027 or something. So I think this will have to do. And I'd like to just express how Polly was for me. That's really the best way that I can do this. And even though I'll leave out a million different things that were so important, again, we would be here forever. It's so difficult to sum up almost 30 years of love and life. But this odd little story might help you understand a little bit about how it was for us. So, Paul and I met in January of 1992. And in about our third date, he invited me over to his apartment to cook me dinner. Okay. So, yeah, very typical Polly, but for me that was new and different. We had a lovely time, of course, but I specifically remember telling him he was a fascinating man, and he was to me. I just was amazed by him. Now you have to realize I was not raised a religious person, but it's hard to describe what happened that day without using these words, so here they are. After dinner, we both stood up and reached out for a hug to each other. And the moment I put my head down on his shoulder, it was as though a host of angels yelled into my mind this one word, home. Because that's how it was. Wherever we went, his arms have always been my home, my safe haven, my happy place. So wherever we went, if we were near each other, we were always touching, holding hands, or just whatever. And that silent communication was so needed by both of us.
Yeah, Chris. Two, please.
Thank you. Thank you. But I love how we nurtured each other. Just by those sorts of little things, we were there for each other. And I love how we amused each other so much. We often made each other laugh. For instance, we found ourselves laughing about what an odd couple we were. No, seriously. I mean, weren't couples supposed to get tired of each other as you get older? And yet we just fell more and more in love. Plus, I love how I'd do the construction projects on the house and he'd do all the shopping and cooking. So, it was weird, but it worked for us. I love the way that we got married. I mean, we were engaged on Millennium New Year's Eve, but didn't actually get married until 2015. He would often joke that we didn't want to rush into anything. And his people were talking to my people. But finally, the day came for our wedding. And it was a very quiet and personal event. And our friends, the minister and photographer, and our beautiful venue hosts are here today. It was such a great event, and we were so happy. I love how helpful and caring Paulie always was, and grateful for so many things about him. One of the most meaningful things was how he bonded with and took care of our dad and Fran. He would cook for them and bring down portioned meals, and always called them when he was at Costco, see if they needed anything. I loved how he would do anything to help out friends or family, or pretty much anybody. So I love how Paulie taught me so much about compassion and forgiveness and business. In our early years, he traveled a lot for Golds, doing gym inspections and going to conventions. He would usually take me with him. And I love how he included me in the process by giving me jobs to do. You know, I just wasn't just like a third wheel there. He involved me in it, and I loved that. I love the stories he'd tell about the early days at Golds. Some of those were so special, and I kind of feel like I should put them on his tribute site because they were so interesting. I love how he volunteered so much for so many organizations, giving his time, well, sometimes monthly, sometimes weekly, everything from homeless feedings to CERT, Arson Watch, TSEP, Knights of Columbus, Topanga Trash Warriors, and of course his favorite, the animals at Nature Wildworks. Where's Molly? There you are. Yes. Or any animal rescue, really. He always said he could not stand to see anybody hungry. So let's just say the wildlife in our neighborhood is thriving. I love Paulie's family, every one of them. I am so grateful to have been welcomed so graciously into this strong and loving and supportive family. It is clear where Paul got his heartfulness from. I'm the luckiest woman in the world to have been able to spend almost half my life with this man. I loved so many things about Paulie. I could go on and on. I will miss him every moment of every day. As you may know, he and I were planning on moving to Hawaii. So in March of this year, we went there to celebrate Paulie's birthday while we were there and to look around for a house. We had so much fun. It was a great time. We'd only been back about 3 weeks when suddenly he started to feel sick. And without going into the whole story, the short of it is I took him into urgent care on a Tuesday afternoon, both of us thinking we were just gonna get him some antibiotics and take him back home again. But they immediately admitted him in the hospital, and he passed away 36 hours later. Although I am so grateful that in the end, I was able to be there with him, you cannot imagine my shock. The moment he passed away, my heart and my life exploded. And I stood there with my hands on this man that I so loved, trying to make sense of what the hell just happened. I could not. Days after that, I heard someone say, "The universe is under no obligation to make sense to me." Well, that certainly is true in my life right now. But how do I live with that and without him? All that I've come up with is to try each day, again, to find some solace in the words of the Desiderata that says, whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. I'm not there yet. I will continue to try. Polly, when we were together, you were my universe. And as I carry your spirit with me for the rest of my life, you still will be and always will be. I love you. Thank you.
Whew. Wow. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Paul's twin sister, Christy. The day we were born, if I can do this, Polly was gracious. Polly was gracious enough to let me enter this world 7 minutes ahead of him. I mean, that's just the way he was. He was polite from the first day he was born. I was so blessed to have him as my twin brother for 72 years. He had such a great spirit and a huge, huge heart. He was easygoing, thoughtful, and very, very humble. He loved everyone. Polly, of course, everybody knows, had a passion for cooking. He made sure everyone was well fed, even the animals. He wanted to be sure everyone was comfortable and taken care of at all times. He was a master in the kitchen and on the grill. We all know his favorite herb was rosemary. When he came to Rochester, he would bring bags of it when he came to visit. Joanna, you were the love of his life. Thank you for loving him unconditionally. You're a part of our family, and we will always be here for you. We love you so, so much, and your whole family. I know Polly is with my mom and dad right now, and when it's my time, he will be here to take my hand and help me cross over so that we will be together forever. Polly, you will always live in our hearts, our thoughts, and our conversations. I love you and can't wait to be with you again soon. Thank you.
All right, I'm Pete Grunkowski for Paul's brother, older brother, three years. Needless to say, we've spent a lot of time together, all of us, my family, and with Paul working at Gold's Gym, I remember calling him up and saying, Paul, I just bought Gold's Gym, and I think I'm going to bring in 2 other partners because I don't have the other 50% of the money to pay for it. And if I don't get somebody, I lose my original deposit. So he said, well, you know, I'll come out. But he said, I don't really have a lot of money to buy into Gold's Gym. I said, well, we'll work something out. We'll find somebody with money. In the meantime, I said, I've got an idea where we could maybe not exactly franchise, but we could license the use of the name because we didn't have any money to franchise throughout the world. So Paul put together a licensing arrangement. We licensed the use of the name for gyms around the world, and we charged $1,200 a year for the first license. And what this did was it made a possibility that everyone in the world can afford to build a Gold's Gym or to have a Gold's Gym. You know, we didn't, so the blessing in disguise was that the more gyms we put around the world, the more our brand name for products took effect. So even though we had one gym in Venice, we had, like Derek said, 600 all over the world. And that gave us the brand name, and it kept Paul and myself and Derek, all our guys, Neil, all the guys, Rich, all you guys, everybody. I mean, we had a family all over the world. And a lot of people came up and said, how did you ever get these ideas to do this? And it was, you know, simply the only answer. I said, well, you know, we were all baby boomers, and we were little kids. We watched, and, you know, being from upstate New York, we had long winters and it was cold. So our winters were you sit inside and you pick out a real good TV show you want to watch. So the two most famous shows that everybody wanted to see back in the, well, let's see, we're going back to the 50s and the 60s, were The Little Rascals and the Three Stooges. Now, the Little Rascals showed us how to build these big 3-story houses out of shipping containers that we got from cardboard that they ship. We went up to an appliance store in our neighborhood, and we got these big crates that they would, wooden crates that they would ship refrigerators. We actually built a 3-story high structure, a clubhouse that we saw the Little Rascals built. And then we would go and, you know, baby boomers went on and on and on. And every house had a new baby. So we went around the neighborhood and collected the old carriages. We would take the wheels off, and then we'd take these boxes and we'd build little cars out of it. And then we all had younger sisters that would push those little cars. So little unique things like that showed us how to work as a team. And because we were all in the same neighborhood, I was the oldest of the baby boomers, and our street had 60 kids living on the street. There was 62 or 63 young kids, all my age or younger, because this is the baby boom, you know, in 1946 that I was born. And we all learned to play together and to build things together, whether it was a structure that we lived in. Our 3-story house, believe it or not, that we built, I could look right into my attic window, but we built in an old sandbox next to our house. We even built a subterranean level that went down 1 story on half of the house, until a big rainstorm came and flooded the whole downstairs, and all of a sudden the foundation of our house in the basement started cracking and the water was flowing in. First time in my life, I got down on my knees. I prayed. I said, God, please don't let this house float away. I said, because my father works hard. My father was a window cleaner. And in upstate New York, it was so cold in the winter, because I worked with him for several years. Every summer I would work with my father and my grandfather. They had a window cleaning company, building maintenance company. And the thing that really amazed me the most is that we were able to wash windows in 10-degree below zero weather. And when I told my father and my grandfather, I said, man, I said, how do you guys do this? They said, well, put your hands in the pail and start washing the windows. And I said, well, how do you keep the thing from turning ice? Alcohol. So I said, oh, I thought you were only supposed to drink that stuff. They said, well, that's, your father must have taught you that. But he says, no, we washed windows sometimes up to 10 hours a day in the ice cold weather using alcohol in the water. So little things like that. You learn to work as a team. You learn to work under pain and suffering. And as a bodybuilder, anything you do, you're always under pain and suffering. So it was unique to be able to all work together as a family. And as you see here today, we're all one big family. Whether Paul united us, no matter what the case was, all of us had input of this. And what made it so nice was that everybody said, well, Pete, you don't have to have a lot of gyms all over the world and own them all. Let everybody else own them. And they can make all the profits they want from it and put it in their own pocket. My father told us this. He said, let them put all the profit in their pocket. And you guys find a different way to get your money. I said, wow, Dad. I said, come on, this is a business. I said, how are we going to get our money? He says, well, what about these Gold's Gym shirts? And he says, why don't you expand on that? So we had a full line of activewear. Back when I was in Rochester, I remember years ago, you had Bob Huffman and Joe Weider. All they had was soybean protein. But man, if you ever ate soybean protein, you want to be in the same room because that stuff will go on through you like it'll scare everybody out of the gym. So I remember my friend had a bakery, this guy, Wally Wojak. I never forget it. His father had a bakery. And we in Rochester, and I said, what do you guys do for protein source? And he said, well, we have, he says, technically, I don't know. He says, all we know is that we have a milk and egg, or we have in our bakery products, we use flour, we use sugar, but we also use powdered egg whites. So I said, wow, that sounds pretty interesting. I looked up and I saw powdered egg whites had some of the highest biological value to it. So I started a company in Rochester way back in 1965, maybe it was, or so. And it was called Prima Health Enterprises, and it was milk and egg protein. We shipped truckloads of it to Canada. And so it was, I did pretty good from, quitting school and all that. And, but when Gold's Gym came up for sale and I brought Paul out, Paul had just finished college courses in business administration in 2 different colleges. And I really thought, this is pretty amazing, because what we did with no education and Paul with great education, but applying it totally different, really brought us into infinity, where our growth factor was just astronomical, bringing that many gyms all over the world and not having to spend a penny on franchising fees. In other words, it would have cost us millions of dollars to establish ourselves as a franchisor all over the world. But Paul came in and figured out a way that we could license use name for premise use only, but we would be in charge. We would have that name. So if we wanted to go into a department store in their territory, we could legally do that. And because the gym is only licensing that name for their premise. So we ended up with, hundreds of thousands of people all over the world clamoring for product that normally they could walk into a Gold's Gym and the first thing a gym owner is going to do is sell them a membership, but they're not going to enforce the product. So my uncle was president of Federated. I never forget, we had a bunch of bodybuilders go to Macy's in Herald Square in Manhattan. And Paul, Dennis Tenorino, the current Mr. Universe at the time, the whole thing. And then we opened up all over the world with department stores handling activewear, home gym equipment, supplements. And we realized we don't have to own gyms all over the world to make this kind of money. We could make our money off our brand name because it's already expanded globally. And it worked. So we had a happy life until all this happened, but Paul went on. He's probably with my father doing gyms up in heaven. And it's so coincidental because NASA wanted I'll never forget when I used to be in the Planetary Society with Carl Sagan and Friedman, those guys. And NASA wanted a workout machine that they could take out into space. But there's no gravity, with zero gravity, it's weightlessness. But ever since I stopped competing, my workout consists of working my body. I do a push movement, pull, and cardio. So push, pull, your body only pulls or it pushes, whether it's legs, arms, no matter what, does two things. It either pulls or pushes. So for NASA, we designed a machine where you're doing pulls and pushes against all your own weight, and all it does is changes redirectional gears. So simple little machine like that. So if you think outside the box, you don't necessarily need this huge college education where people are all competing against for the same thing. I try to teach my kids that you got to think outside the box, and if you do that, you'll come up with ideas, If you don't come up with ideas, be careful, because if you're going to go smoke pot to come up with ideas, then you're not going to have the energy to do it. So live and learn. Thank you very much.
Tall girl here. Thank you. And thank you, all of you, for being here. It's just so moving and touching to see you and feel the love that you're all bringing here, and feel Polly here with us. I'm Peggy. I'm the oldest of the five. Queen of the roost. I really had trouble knowing what to say. I mean, everybody has said so much that is so true. So I'm working on my memoirs now. I've just retired. And I have a chapter on my 5 siblings. And I'm going to read you a little bit from when my mother was dying, because the 5 of us were there and around her bed, and I looked at each of them and had so many memories and so many feelings about each of them that I'm including in my memoirs. The nurses managed to brush her hair in the morning before we got there. Her soft white curls were stretched out over the pillow like flax drying in the sun. But there was no sun, only the starkness and the rhythm of the percussion section. Those machines with their miles of electric cords and the little numbers on their faces. Remember? Remember it? It was as if they were saying to us smugly, "We'll tell you how long she has. Only we know." Paul studied those machines every day. He remembered what the numbers said the night before, and he recorded in his mind every change, every increase or decrease of fluid, her breathing, her pulse rate, her movement. Intimacy with those machines was the way to feel her life, to hold on to her. Paul is a twin. He was such a quiet little boy. He was always looking out of large, wondering eyes. I mean, I remember when they were born and they had a crib on each side of the living room. We had to take over the living room. We had so many kids. And Christy was in her crib doing all kinds of things. And I won't describe it. And Polly was in his crib quietly just looking at her like, oh my God. So glad I let her go out first. He wondered and he wandered, and he always seemed a little lost. Yet he had his own agenda, searching for some adventure that would carry him to a new place. On one of the few evenings that our mom and dad went out, I babysat, of course, the oldest one. It was my job to make sure the kids were awakened at night to pee so they wouldn't wet their beds. I didn't know then that kids their age wet their beds because they're anxious, worried, afraid. That was Paul. When I got him up, he would walk around in his sleep, not knowing where he was. I'd watch him for a while, feeling so sad for him. His fear and confusion were evident in the nighttime when his defenses were down. In the daytime, he survived by taking care of little helpless extensions of himself, like animals and later people in pain. It was only when Paul met Joanna that I could see that he stopped wandering and he stopped being afraid. It was only with Joanna that he settled into a kind of grace and peace that was healing for him. I am forever grateful.
Yeah. This is going to be tough.
I'm here.
I've been struggling to find words that somehow reflect this loss. And then it's the word part that's difficult, because my connection to Polly, aside from being his sister, has to do with like feelings and adventures and connections and experiences. And, you know, this might not mean a whole lot to many of you, but on one of my trips to visit Paul and Joanna in Topanga, we went dancing. And I actually had the pleasure of dancing with my brother. And again, this might mean nothing, but that experience was all about trust, and it was about connection, and it was about closeness. And this wasn't like free form, you know, this was structured ballroom. This was, I think it was the Foxtrot. And it still is one of the real precious moments in my life. Because I don't know if any of you get the experience of dancing with a sibling, but especially when they know what they're doing. And he did. And we actually giggled our way through the whole thing because we were nailing it. And we knew it. It's hard for me to talk about Polly in the past tense, because I don't really want to talk about things like love and connection and closeness in the past tense. I never want that to be something that is in my past. So Polly, I love you, and I will continue to talk to you and wait for your calls on my birthday, where he would sing his version of Happy Birthday. Always, I will hear your voice, and I'll feel your presence, and I will always be grateful to have had you as my brother and my friend.
I love you.
Thank you very much.
How about a hand for Neil, huh? I bring him wherever I go. You're a good man. And his son? Oh, that's right, Murray, right? Yeah, Murray's taking care of our Zoom. Thank you. You guys have been great. I think it's, at least I was sitting there listening to the Krimkowskis thinking, boy, you know, the world needs a little bit more of the Krimkowski love. I mean, that's pretty freaking special. Thank you. I didn't know you guys were twins. That's, you know, I heard it at one point and then, you know, you forget. I was born an only twin. I look just like myself, I dress just like myself, but I never had another person, so. Okay. So Pete talked about licensing, which, you know, he's very humble, but it was genius what he and Paul rolled out, because there is franchising, there's licensing, and Pete had that great idea. It's like, get our name out there because we have the one gym, just one. And the beauty of what Pete talks about, the Gold's Gym family, we really were. And the fact that Pete knew to reach out to his own brother, saying, I need your help, is what we all saw today with all of you and your beautiful exhortation of your siblings. I mean, all of this, and, you know, you coming up here and being with her, and it's just great. And this is how far the Gold's Gym family extends. Joanna gave me this, you know, wish from, E.G. of Gold's Gym Japan. Now, if you knew E.G., you'd be so impressed, because this man barely knew how to speak English, but he brought a translator with him to all the Gold's Gym conventions. And he had a team of about 25 people. And after I was done entertaining people on stage, you know, people would come up, hey, Derek, hey, that was great, that was great. But E.G. and his team would stay down on the floor. As a Japanese custom, you don't go on a person's stage. And I love that integrity. And so I knew they were waiting there, and I'd go down, and every year, E.G., through his interpreter, asked me to relay a certain joke that he didn't get. And so I would have to repeat the joke to the interpreter, and then the interpreter would tell it to E.G., and then E.G. would laugh. The toughest one was the convention where I just made up this thing where I took E.G. to the movies last night, and I took him to see Pearl Harbor. And I said to the audience, I leaned over to E.G. and I said, if the Japanese were giving up their lives, why were they wearing helmets? And E.G. had me tell that joke from the interpreter, and he was dying laughing. He thought that was the funniest thing, and I was nervous. I mean, are you kidding me? But that's the beauty of our Gold's Gym family around the world. We were all there for each other, and this is what E.G. sent to Joanna, and he wanted us to read this, and this is E.G. Currently, there are more than 90 locations of Gold's Gym in Japan, and there will be 100 locations in the near future. Many people in Japan are working on serious fitness. Because of the COVID situation, people feel deeply the importance of training themselves. Paul's gentleness and kindness were the starting point for many people in Japan to start training. He gave me a chance when I first met Paul in 1995, in spite of the fact that he didn't know what I would be in the future. He recommended me in the company. All happened because of his kind heart. Paul's one decision has led to more than 100,000 members of Gold's Gym in Japan. Thank you, Paul. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude. E.G. And there's always, where there's the Lone Ranger, there's Tonto. Right? There's always Batman and Robin. And Paul had his sidekick, and he was good. He was right there with Paul, and he made it happen. Not only did he help with franchising, he helped with our vendor program. Ladies and gentlemen, Rich Minzer.
Wow. First, I got a chance to meet everybody in the family over the years, and I was part of Paul's life, from family to business. I lived with him all the time. In fact, when I came to LA and he brought me out here with Pete, meeting Pete and Paul in New York at a trade show, I said, "You're the guy we want." I went, "Me?" I said, "You're the one." I said, "Yeah, but where am I gonna live?" Because I had nowhere to live. I had no friends in California. All I knew was Gold's Gym was the thing, and we were gonna build this company. They gave me their vision. We came out. Paul gave up his apartment. I moved into his apartment. The rent was $400 or $500 a month in Santa Monica. It was, for me, it was a lot because I had nothing. But we built. We knew we had to build something. Pete gave us the vision. We built it. It's kind of like, how do you build a cow and then you milk it? This is what we did. But the whole time, Paul always cared about me. Outside of work, he'd go, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" I'd say, "Paul, but how do you even get home from here every day? I didn't even know where I lived." He'd draw a little stick figure on a map. You go up this street, go that way. "Yeah, but where is this? Where does that mean?" I had no friends. Everybody was older than I was. I was 28. And every day I'd walk home, or he'd drive me home. And finally I'd stop at the market, pick up food, eat, whatever. And he'd pick me up and take me to work in his little red Mercedes. He'd pull it up in front. Don't ever park in Paul's space, by the way. Don't you ever, because he'll lock you in there purposely, and he'll keep you there all day. And I would say, "Paul, they're yelling downstairs to come get you." And he'd go, "I'm not coming out. I've got too much work on the calls." Anyway, we were growing a company. I came aboard, we had 50 gyms. Remember, there's no internet, there's no email going on here. It's strictly phone calls, talking to people face to face, and faxes, that's it. How did we do this? It's overwhelming to me still to this day. How did we go from 50 to 538? And Paul, by the way, kept every agreement, I'm sure it's at the house, in a file cabinet. But we built this company. Every day we'd come in and work. We lived it. Now I understand why Paul kept me by his side. If I lived in Santa Monica, he went to Marina Del Rey. He brought me to Marina Del Rey. So it was all the time I'd go, I'd follow him where we went. That's how we had to build this. We had to bond and build this thing. At the same time, every gym that came aboard, he took the time to spend with them, take them to lunch, take them to dinner, showing them the area. That you can't get. You don't buy that. That's part of the package. I think he felt every day that anybody spent any money on this name was really important to him, to make sure they were successful, no matter what they did. At the same time, he made sure everybody in the company, always polite, always wanted to make sure they were okay, and always cared about everybody, no question. In fact, even to this day, last day, he would call me on my birthday too. And I said, "How do you remember that?" He would remember those things. The little things meant a lot to Paul. Those little things meant a lot to him every day. But we built goals. Again, every day we come to work, 100 messages downstairs. I went, "Man, how are we gonna call these people back?" He goes, "Don't worry about calling everybody back. Just try to keep it even every day." And we built it from 50. And every day we'd have a thing where the sky wasn't the limit, it was only the start. That's what we did. And we had to keep innovating or we'd stagnate. That was the direction we were going. So we went from 50 to 100 to 150. Paul was getting overwhelmed, so I bumped myself up, started supporting him every which way we can, and supporting that whole thing. At the same time, the revenue from the company was coming in thanks to the gym owners, and they were staying in the program. We were supporting a gym chain, supporting a company, supporting people's salaries. That was really important to us every day. Everybody was successful, no matter who they were in the company or outside the company. It was really critical. We saw a lot of people grow in this business. We had a guy in Lima, Ohio, his name was Johnny Ferraro. He was the biggest Gold's Gym. Johnny went on to be the creator of the show American Gladiators. great stories all the time, but everybody was successful. That was the key. Make everybody successful, make sure that whatever money they spent on that name every day, they were successful. That was really Paul's passion, to make sure they were successful. So he'd spend that time, like you just heard about E.G., how much he cared about that people. Everybody was treated the same. It didn't matter who. I knew that somebody came into town that day, whatever gym it was, that was Paul's time with them. I took a step back and kept the engine going as we kept moving forward each time. So how did we do this? I still don't know, but we did it. Again, even to the end, no internet, no emails. We'd pass messages through the walls to keep it going. That's how crazy it was. 100 messages a day were passed through the walls. We had a great support team. Neil, Derek, the support, Ruth was there all the time. Linda was there all the time. Great team. You're only as good as your team. And that's what Paul knew. Paul knew he was only as good as his team. The whole time I always told Paul I wanted to thank him so much for giving me that opportunity in my life. Not many people give you that opportunity in life. I had met Pete and Paul. They gave me that chance in my life to exceed and get ahead, just like he did for every gym owner. Give them the shot. Let's see what they can do. Let's see if they can come through. It's really important that somebody gives you a chance, make sure you do your best at it. And that's what I try to do every day and support him all the way. Right or wrong, always show that person the respect to make sure that they succeed and you succeed with them. It's really critical. I see a lot of people nowadays, they don't really help people. They could, but they don't. To this day, I'll help anybody who wants that help succeed, if they really want to do it. If they don't want to do it, I'll back away. It's the old thing. You can only help certain people if they want the help. That's it. So it's really critical to grow that whole concept in your head and keep that. Paul taught me that, to respect, do the values that anybody would want to do, and treat everybody equally, no matter who they are. It was a celebrity gym owner we had, a Ric Flair or a Reggie Jackson. They got treated the same way. I was like, wow, you're gonna talk to them the same way? To me, it was a big deal. To him, everybody was equal. Didn't matter who they were, but we wanted to see them successful. Boy, I tell you, it's just overwhelming to even think this way, but I know Joanna, he was a universe. And I remember spending many Thanksgivings with you guys, Christmas, lunch, whatever we did, we always spent it together and talked about everything. Pete coming out to visit you in Hawaii, Playa del Rey, all those times were great. Every time he enjoyed it. He enjoyed making you Polish food, of all things. Remember, I was always talking about making food and bringing it out to you and go, I gotta make this for Pete. It was great, watching all this stuff grow. But when somebody has an impact on your life and can change your life forever, you always remember that and tell that person how much they had an impact on your life. Let them know that while they're still here, which I did. I feel good that I was able to tell Paul that many times. The last time we talked, he said, I want you to come up to the house and go through the stuff with me. I said, absolutely. And I know Paul has everything saved. I watched it every day. I watched him take every agreement that we signed and make a copy of it. I watched him keep every newsletter that he made from day one. True story, when we came out here, I said, where's the manual? What should I do? And he said, there is no manual. It's you and I. I went, wow. So the first year we were doing our convention, I said, but we're gonna go to the show and just go to the booth. He goes, no, we're gonna set up the booth. So we went down Lincoln Boulevard and Santa Monica, picked up all the frames of the booth and put them together. That's how you do it. It really is. There's no elevator to the top. You gotta take the stairs. No question. Anyway, I don't think Paul is gone for me. He's always gonna be part of me. That's the way it's gonna be. It's not gonna change. I'm not gonna let that change. If somebody has, again, that changes your life, you don't forget that, ever. But somebody asked me the other day, and by the way, all the tributes I've read, friends' notes, everybody says one key word, he cared, and he did. If you read everything's notes about caring, he did, he cared about everybody, no question. But somebody asked me recently, would you do it all again? And I said 150% I'd do it all again, but this time we do it a little slower so we can enjoy it more. And that's it. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Rich. It really was. Those guys, you two were the dynamic duo. You really did a great job. And the beauty of what you guys did is every single franchisee was handpicked, right? I mean, you could have signed up anybody, but you guys really took the cream of the crop, and the beauty of what you both did is that we're still friends after decades with so many franchisees. And that's just wonderful. So thank you. You guys were a wonderful team. And you mentioned Reggie Jackson. So Reggie Jackson, I had met the Hall of Fame baseball player, and I went to his Hall of Fame induction in Cooperstown. And then, we gave him a Gold's Gym and up in Monterey. And then Rich and Paul come to me and say, hey, Derek, we got a problem with Reggie. Oh, really? Wow, what's the deal? Well, he put his name above the Gold's Gym sign. And I said, what do you mean above? It says Reggie Jackson's Gold's Gym. I go, oh, God, really? Did you tell him that was okay? He said, no, we didn't tell him. Did you? I didn't tell him. I would never tell him that. And so Paul Arena says, you got to tell him to take it down. I go, me? You guys are in franchising. You tell him. And so, no, he's your friend, Derek. So I remember, I met Reggie, and, he's a tough businessman, right, Rick? He's a tough guy. He takes everything very seriously. And even though we were friends, I was nervous as heck. Hey, Reggie, how's your Gold's Gym doing? Great, Derek. Yeah, why? Well, we're known as Gold's Gym, as you know, and I know you respect the brand, and we have, a lot of celebrities that own Gold's Gym, like Archie Manning, NFL player, and some other people, and we don't allow them to put their name above the Gold's Gym sign. And I just left that out there, and I'm looking at him. And he's looking at me. I go, please, God, help me. And he says, really? I said, yeah, it's just got to be Gold's Gym. Sorry. It's just Gold's Gym. And God, that was a moment. He bowed his head, and he thought about it. He really gave it some thought. And then he looked me in the eye, and he says, no, I understand, because about 50% of the people I meet don't like me. I don't know anybody that doesn't like Gold's Gym. And he took it down. Is that respect, Pete? That's respect. So thank you. That was a scary moment. But so in every business, you have to have a lawyer protecting us. So we had several, but this is one of our first, and he really was there to protect us along the way. I'm married to one, and I know how, the legal system kind of works, and it's like it's sometimes over my head, but we were the most copied logo in the world. Am I right, Pete? That bent golds with the strong man with the bent barbell, and Jim on the bottom of it was the most copied logo in the world. And we saw shirts sold on Venice Beach, Buckwheat's Gym, God's Gym, Gecko's Gym, you name it. And who literally at one time had 22 illegal Italian gyms in Italy, like all on the same block. Didn't even bother calling for a license. That's how popular we were. But we had to, at least as the courts would tell us, you have to reach out to them and say, you cease and desist. So thank God for lawyers like Scott Johansson. Scott?
Thank you. You're good. You're good. I just realized something that, listening to Derek, the guy can speak. He can speak in front of small crowds, big crowds, and he always lands on his feet. One of the things that Derek and I have in common is we do enjoy speaking in front of people. I like to speak extemporaneously, and I realized for the first time in my life this morning, I couldn't. So I want to thank Joanna and Paul's family for giving me the honor and the privilege to speak here today. I want to say a few things, and I had to write them down. So bear with me, and I'm going to read from what I wrote, and there's a lot to share. I met Paul in the spring of 1989 when he had his apartment in Marina del Rey. Before then, Paul worked and often slept out of an upstairs office at 360 Hampton Drive in Venice, the mecca of bodybuilding, Gold's Gym. About a year after I met Paul, actually I think it was maybe a couple of years after I met Paul, he met Joanna, who would quickly become his best friend and the love of his life. Joanna was, and still is, Paul's soulmate, inseparable forever. 9 years before I met Paul, Pete asked his brother to move from New York to LA. I believe it might even be Santa Monica, right? Pete had a grand vision. He wanted to grow Gold's Gym. He wanted to change the world. Pete knew Paul could deliver it. Along with Paul, and with the help and unwavering support of Paul's very good friend, Rich Minzer, the three dramatically changed the health and fitness industry. What they did had never been done before. Gold's went from a small handful of gyms to a worldwide fitness phenomenon, comprising, I lost count. I mean, it was over 530 gyms. Some years say 60, I don't know. It's always good to lose count, right? This is just one of Paul's many legacies. This was the Gold's Gym family. These were Paul's friends. Closer to home, Paul loved his Topanga community. I attended many events with him and Joanna, the annual parades, the Will Gear Theater, and I only say theater not have any disrespect because I cannot pronounce the rest of it. Theatrical Botanicum or something? Botanicum, okay. Froggy's and other restaurants we went to eat. Paul loved the local theater. Shakespeare wrote, "How far that little candle throws its beams, so shines a good deed in a naughty world." Paul's good deeds were countless. His candle showered, excuse me, his candle showered brightly and in abundance. For those of us who were fortunate enough to call Paul friend, he showered us with his beams of light. Paul was many things to many people, but at the end of the day, Paul was one thing to everyone he met, a friend. If you met Paul and you did not see it in him, you weren't paying attention. Then there was a room at the inn. This is what Paul and I affectionately called a room in Paul and Joanna's house on Horseshoe Drive. When I was in West LA for business, Paul would insist that I stay with them and not in a hotel. I think one of the few times I ever saw or ever heard, it was on the phone, Paul get upset with me was when I stayed somewhere without asking him first, why didn't you stay with us? A great room to wake up in. A view of the sunrise. I took many pictures of it. I love to take pictures. Mornings in paradise. My stays with Paul and Joanna were never just visits. They were events. They were experiences of sharing good conversation, food, hikes in the Topanga Hills, more food, sometimes business meetings, more food. Paul was a great chef. When I left their home, I was always full and at so many levels. There were You're right, Derek, this is tough. And you do not know when it's going to hit you. When I left their home, I was always full and at so many levels. There were no goodbyes, just see you later. Now we move forward, faced with profound loss, And with a loss comes grief, a love we cannot share. And so we grieve. When you lose someone who is close to you, you don't just have a bad day, you have a new reality, emptier than the last. They say that time heals all wounds. I do not believe it does. Time only fades the memory of loss's pain. Fortunately, we all have exceedingly good memories of our time with Paul. Those memories help us wash away the hurt and amplify what he was and still is. My times and experiences with Paul were many, at both a personal and a business level. And during those times, Paul was always himself. I believe that every moment and every event of every person's life on earth plants something in his soul. And in 1989, Paul planted something in mine, and that was a friendship. It would grow into a true and lasting friendship. It was good, a gift that keeps on giving. There is no legacy so rich as friendship. Friends are siblings God never gave us. For those of us here, God gave us Paul. I love him like a brother. Paul believed that we each have a special gift, and we have a responsibility to find it and share it with others. Paul was one of God's gifts to us. Paul exemplified the meaning of friendship. Paul lived a fulfilling and purpose life. Paul's gift to us was himself. He was a good man. He was a wonderful friend. Paul was my best friend. He will be sorely missed. So, where do you go from here? My next message is to Paul. Paul, you had a wonderfully good, full, rich, and loving life. You have the gift of a soulmate, a Beshert, in Joanna, a true gift, a true friend, a forever friend, a blessing. Paul, thank you for your March 23 email. They just returned from Hawaii, looking around, and he had the time of his life. I'm not going to share everything with you, but I don't think Paul or Joanna would mind if I share just this little bit. Paul, in the subject line of the message that came on March 23rd, we kept in very regular contact, business-wise, personally-wise, over the years. And his subject line was AWOL, absent without leave. He's always very apologetic. He's Paul. He would apologize for not getting back. I mean, it was only 3 weeks before that I talked to him, or 4 weeks before. My response to Paul's message says, no worries. Life's transition are often stressful. Take care and call me anytime. The next thing I thought I heard as Derek, I got a call from Paul. Then I got another call from Paul. Paul doesn't do that. But like Derek, I had Joanna's number under Paul on my phone. So for my part, I will not say goodbye. I refuse to say goodbye. So I say, Paul, take care of yourself. Save a room at the inn for me, and I'll see you later.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Scott. That was beautiful. Who says lawyers don't have heart and soul? Very nice. Amazing. Very cool. Thank you, Scott. We talked about the Goldschmidt family, and I remember I did many PR things with newspapers and magazines and such, and they would always ask me, hey, what's the secret sauce? Like, you know, Kentucky Fried Chicken. What makes Gold's Gym so successful? And the first thing that kind of popped in my mind, and I still say it to this day, I said, we were a successful wheel. The wheel was on the outside, Pete Grimkowski, his partners, Ed Connors and Tim Kimber. And there were 5 spokes that held that wheel true. And one was our man Paul. 2, Rich Minzer, and Joe Bolzich, who did our merchandising. Myself did marketing. And the 5th spoke on that wheel was our next speaker here, and who was also a guy that really helped push Gold's Gym up to the limits, especially when I would bring the celebrities into Gold. Since I was never a bodybuilder, I didn't know about lifting weights. In my day, we weren't supposed to lift weights according to the baseball coaches because it would dramatically, decrease our muscles for baseball. It was that whole stupid myth. Now every baseball player is lifting weights. So I bring these celebrities to this guy here, and he would say, "God, from here, Derek," and he would put them on our own nutrition program and weight training program, and I couldn't have done it without him. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Spruce.
I promise this will be real quick. For one reason is that, Paul and I had a very unusual relationship from day one. I was fortunate enough to get there about in the same time he did, but there's only one thing I remember about Paul that was really deep, and that's it right there. That smile, his sparkle in his eye, and he believed in me. I got there as an athlete, and, Pete started the whole thing, and, Derek kind of built the brand. But what people don't realize is Paul spread the brand. He physically spread the brand. He made it possible for entrepreneurs around the world to become millionaires. Forget about that so much, is that they were able to turn their passion into a business. He interviewed them. He went into communities to find out, can you make this work in your community, and give them the opportunity to things that they would never have that chance. There's so many people like me out there that were athletes that wanted to, turn their passion into their business. And, obviously the very beginning, and Derek said it perfectly, with Pete, Ed, and Tim, they created this idea. And then, you get lucky enough to find someone like Derek that builds the brand, but then you get luckier with a guy like Paul, who was dedicated and cared. I mean, that was the one thing about him. I've been going to his place in Marina Del Rey and watching the 4th of July from his place there. And because we were friends on that level. I am so jealous of you, of his family. You called him Paulie. I didn't know that. I didn't know his name was Paulie. I knew him as Paul. I wasn't as close as you were. I wish I was. I missed it. But we always stayed together. He stayed true to me. He supported me. When I left Gold's, and for those of you, we're now part of, big brands. He started my career along with Pete, Ed, and Tim, and Derek. I mean, these are the guys that launched it, and just great things have happened. And that bar that Gold set, that Paul was really such an important part of, that just couldn't have happened without him, is what every gym chain does today. We copied everything that Gold's did. And without Paul, that just wouldn't have happened. And then Rich, I wanted to come up after Rich, because he was the other guy out there. Even after I'd left Gold's, you guys both were just so a big part of our lives. And then, of course, I see Rick Valeni out there, who's, there's probably nobody more connected to that Gold's Gym brand than he was, as far as that athlete and everything else. But, I gotta say, Paul was just that one guy that was somehow, he just figured out how to interview people, how to find people, go into different communities, and then, actually just understand what you can do, and made it possible for everybody. And, he was so diligent about what he did. And that was the one thing about him. He's going, this guy's weird. He's like so deep. He was deep. And that's why he was so successful. And that's why I'm so jealous that I didn't know him like the family did. I knew him on a business side, but we became friends. you know, and I wish I had known more after, especially after hearing everybody talk about, you know, all that. So I will say, I just want to say this is because this is all about Paul today. And that is, I want to thank him for my career and everything that, you know, my family's become. He was such a huge part of it, and I'm not sure what would have happened without him. So thank you.
Holy shit. God dang. That was beautiful. Having a good time? Yeah, a lot of love in this room, Joanna. A lot of love in this room. And you deserve every bit of it. And we're always going to be there for you. You know, because that's what he would want. Wow. Nice, Neil. Yeah, it was easy for me to do my job because the spokes and the owners of it, they had skills. I had the gift of BS. So I just spread the word. This is a great gym, isn't it, everybody? But as Neil said, you know, Paul and Rich made the footprints happen. They put the footprints, again, think about the numbers, 600 locations in 43 states, 27 countries, 3 million members. That's a hell of a company with no manual, right, Rich? It's zero manual. And we didn't have the biggest budget either, but man, we had heart and soul, didn't we, Pete? We had heart and soul. And Rick Valenti's over there, and when I first was introduced to Pete and Ed Connors, because, you know, Pete's partner, Tim Kimmer, brought me in just to talk about, you know, like making an agency at Gold's Gym, because they would get calls. Hey, you have a young Arnold? You know, a young Stallone? And Pete's, you know, and Tim and I met each other at a celebrity softball game. He said, can you just come talk to my partner? I said, yeah, sure, Tim. So I came in and I said, yeah, you guys should just set up like a Gold's Gym motion picture and TV division, and don't take 10% like agencies do. You know, just like maybe charge, if you're $300 a year for a membership, charge $100, and then put those Gold Gym shirts on them when they do a film and TV show. And you know, Pete was nodding, like liking it. And so I said goodbye, and I walked out, and Pete says, where are you going? Don't you want the job? And then that really was it. I said, wow, I didn't know this was a job interview. I'm acting, I'm doing stunt work. People do that and do this. And I never forgot that. And looking at Rick Valenti, he got every single thing that I sent him out on. I just sent to all the casting directors for the body of your work. He got the Van Halen cover. He got an ESPN bodybuilding show, and it just went on. When I met Neil, I sent him out. He got everything, and it just went. So all those visions that people are talking about, Pete, all of them came back gold. And you did have what I think, Rich, you said one time, you know, we were like a Trojan horse. We weren't a huge army. We were just like 5 and 3. There was just 8 of us running, really, this incredible brand. So now we're going to turn it over to our friends on Zoom. Okay, and Joanna will be monitoring. Oh, yeah. No, that's good. Thank you very much. Very much. Glad you're in control. Yes, so before we go to Zoom, we will now open it up to anybody here at the Mountain Mermaid. You're welcome to come up here. Hey, we've all cried. It's like anything goes. Whatever you feel, share a story, a moment. There's no right or wrong what to say. None of us really know how to act in these circumstances. But as you've heard, there's some great, great moments of heart and love in here. So feel free. Come up. Would anybody like to say anything before? Yeah? Oh, very good.
How's that? Good? Quite a gathering, quite a gathering. I'll give you the Topanga perspective. soon as I put my glasses on. My name is Roger Pugliese, live in the Canyon. I've been here since 1982. My wife and I live on Old Topanga Canyon Road, for those that know a little bit about the canyon. And I just wanted to read this little thing that I put together in speaking from my heart. When we first heard of Paul's passing, we were all shocked and saddened. It was a big, big loss for this canyon. This happening the way it did felt wrong. It was not supposed to happen like that, and yet it did. Paul is a guy who showed up one Sunday morning and joined the Topanga Trash Warriors. He got out of his car, walked up to Joseph Rosindo and I, and said, "What needs to be done?" That's who he was. That's who he was to us. He was a sweet, kind, and loving person, always giving of himself. Giving of himself to many of the different organizations and groups in this canyon. Paul struck me that way. I didn't know him very long, but only gathering every Sunday morning and going out and cleaning Topanga Canyon Boulevard. It's what the Warriors do. He made sure to tell us, though, that he would only be with us every other Sunday, because the other Sundays that he wasn't with us, he would be in church. He would be in church in, I think it's in the Palisades or off of Santa Monica, off of Pacific Palisades. That was Paul. That was Paul to us. As the weeks went by, I learned more about him. He gave of himself all through this canyon. Of course, it became easier to learn because every time he was with us, he wore that vest. The vest that I forgot to bring today. I was going to bring it and show it to everybody, because on that vest, he would get out of his car with the vest on, and you would see all the different things that he was involved with in this canyon. Every time I think of Paul, to me, he is what is considered a true Topangan. Joanna, please know that your loss is shared and felt by all of us. Paul's spirit lives on in this canyon. I'm sure he will be coming back for a visit from time to time. It was my honor, and others in the canyon that knew him, to know him for this brief moment in time. God bless Paul, and God bless to all of us, and especially to Joanna. God bless you.
Oh, my goodness. You look different from this direction. So I'm, good one. So anyway, I'm Joanne's brother, and, oh, God dang it. So in our family, it is not easy to become part of our family. You know, there's been girlfriends and boyfriends and all that over the years, and you know, it hasn't been easy to get into our group. And he found his way. He became part of our family. He wasn't just, you know, Joe's husband. He was us. He was part of us. And I just want you all to know how much he meant to my family. Yeah, he, you know, you've all said how kind he was and generous to a fault. I mean, he was always looking like, what can I do for you guys? You guys have enough food? You've all said it's food. You can't go hungry in his house, that's for sure. But we loved him so much. He was so much he was just us. He was part of us. He wasn't just like Joe and him, he was part of us. So I just wanted to say, now I finally got to meet you all, and I'm so grateful for that. And God, it's gonna suck without him. It just is. So that's it.
Sorry, too tall. My name is Max, and I wanted to speak from the standpoint or the perspective of one of the beneficiaries of Paul's endless generosity. I was Paul and Joanna's next door neighbor for, I think, about 4 years, and I never would really describe Paul as my next door neighbor. I call Paul and Joanna my Topanga mom and dad. Paul was the father figure that I really desperately needed in my life. He fulfilled that role in a way that you could only really dream or imagine of having someone do. The qualities that I've heard so many people describe, his gentleness, his generosity, his virtues, his value, his selflessness. I was a direct recipient of all of that. I'm very distant, both geographically and emotionally, from my family. And I found this man who happened to live next door to me, who was not only capable, but really willing and eager to provide all of that, to nurture, to love, to guide, to be a role model, to be that strong father figure in my life and in the lives of so many others. I know the impact he's had on the community through his volunteer work. I know his work in the church. I know his work at Gold's. I know the impact he's had on his family. I especially saw his relationship with Joanna up close. I admired Paul, and I continue to admire him so much. And I think so many of us share that. He's someone who represents the qualities we aspire to. I could go on from living with the coyotes that Paul fed, being a part of that menagerie. I was one of them. You know, there was Squirrely Girl, there was Fritz and Frida, there was our class, there was Wiley, there were the coyotes, and then there was Max, the next door neighbor, who, if there was a batch of ribs made, there would be a Tupperware that came over for me. And I fully give Paul credit for so much in life, including helping me seal the deal with my partner who came over. And one of our first dates, I happened to have one of Paul's ribs, special rib deliveries, and I shared them with her, and it turned out to be one of her favorite dishes. I think that it was one of the most important things in the early stages of my relationship to introduce her to Paul and Joanna. She's never met my actual biological parents, but she knows them. And to repay that debt I have to them, I think about that a lot. I think about how swiftly Paul was taken from us and the lessons to learn from that. To never take for granted that we'll see each other again, especially with what we've all been going through in the isolation and disconnection we experienced. I have so many regrets that those last 18 months that I could have been sharing with Paul and Joanna were taken away from us. But apart from that, whatever anger or resentment I might feel, and that sense of valuing every moment and valuing every connection, I want to take more from Paul, the example he set through his generosity, through what he gave to his community, his family, his business associates. So many of us share those memories, those experiences of Paul taking care of us in a way that was completely out of proportion with who we were to him, because that was just him. He had that endless well of caring, of love, of generosity that he shared with so many. And Joanna, I will never feel like I can repay you and Paul for all you've given to us, but I will certainly try directly to you, to our community, to my partner, to the world in general, because of that example he set. So thank you, and I encourage you all to take that too, to take that smile, that generosity, that spirit, that mischievous nature, all of it, and to live a little more like Paul. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Because- Okay, I'm David, and this is Alexa.
I'm Alexa. We're both neighbors.
We're both next door,
Horseshoe.
the other next door neighbors.
Right.
So we
Different houses.
different houses.
Different houses.
It turns out, just in talking, I mean, we've known each other for years, but we both moved in next to Paul, I think in 1997.
Me too.
And Paul had moved in, I think, in 1996, I believe. Or, is that right, Joanna? I'm not sure. Was it also 90? Yeah. So, you know, we both have things to say. Would you like to start? Okay, I'm going to just say, you know, I just had this message. I was looking at my phone. It's from, I think, March 26th. And it was from Paul. And I had called Paul and said to Paul, I'm going away. I'm going to New York for a week, and I need, you know, I just want to let you know, but there'll be a car at my house. And he would always offer, he would say, I'll get your mail for you. I mean, Paul was the best neighbor that you could ever possibly have. He was wonderful. Paul and Joanna. I'm sorry. Okay. So he wrote back to me, and he wrote me a text. Got your recent message. Hope you have a great trip. We will keep an eye on your home. We are here the entire week, and there's a strong arm, which is my arm is not. We need one of you guys from the gym to do this, but you know, on the message from Paul, and that was just. I mean, that's just one thing. I mean, the first time I met Paul, I came to look at our house, and there was this guy without a shirt on and shorts on a ladder, trimming trees with a what are they called? Like the saw, the gasoline. What are those called? Yeah, and he was trimming Alexa's house hedge up on a ladder, up near the up near the electric wires and everything. And I looked up and I was like, wow. And he went, hi, you know, and it was Paul. He was like, really. Anyway, you want to say something?
Welcome to the neighborhood. That's
Welcome to the
probably
neighborhood,
what
yeah.
he said. I met Paul in China when I moved from Austria straight to Southern California and moved into the house right across the street from Paul in China. And it was absolutely astounding how they were in the neighborhood, how they welcomed us. It's a cul-de-sac, and Paul was the heart, and Paul and Joanna were the heart and the soul of the end of Horseshoe Drive. And, you know, there were barbecues, there were the block parties, there were other events, there were gatherings that were either in the street or at their house, and they were warm, they were welcoming, they were generous, and they were so loving. And it was for me, and now I'm getting tear up here, but Paul also became extremely well known to my own family in Europe, because when Paul learned that my brothers were both into bodybuilding, I mean, little bodybuilding, Paul decided, okay, I have still t-shirts from Gold Gyms. I still have a jacket from Gold Gyms. I have towels. And he came over with those packages. Every time when he knew I would go to Europe, I got another package for one of my brothers and then for my nephews. And then he learned that my mother was not very well. He organized supplements so that I could take the supplements to Europe. And my mother passed. My father still took those supplements years afterwards. I still had to bring them. I mean, Paul was generous in what I would call locally, and he had the biggest heart you can imagine on a very international level. So I actually felt at home on Horseshoe Drive because of Joanna and Paul. But what I also wanted to mention, because so many of you talked about Paul and the animals, I brought a dog and a cat from Europe. When I met Paul the first time, He said, "Oh, you brought a dog." I said, "Yeah, I have a dog." And he said, "Oh, I have a cat." And then he said, "I think I have 2 cats." And I said, "I brought a dog and a cat." He looked at me and said, "How does your cat look like?" I said, "A little black cat."
Oh, that was your cat?
That was my cat.
You had a black cat too.
Yeah,
Right,
you had a black cat too. We all had black
Yeah,
cats. But
that was-
my black cat moved in with Paul and China, got fed there, slept there, came home at 6 in the morning when Paul left the house, was fed and treated well at my house, went back to Paul and China, even got a name there, was called Elvis at the other house. So Paul had a huge heart and just supported everyone here. So
I just want to say one more thing. You know, after just a few days after, you know, I found out that Paul passed away, I was in my house, and my wife had cancer a number of years ago and passed away from cancer. So I was thinking about my own life in relation to what had just happened to Joanna. And I was thinking about, you know, what should I do? And I was thinking about myself, and I was thinking, what would Paul tell me? Well, because I spoke to Paul every day, almost every day of my life. Paul would be out by the driveway, and we would talk about a whole lot of things. And I thought, what would Paul tell me about my life? And then I thought, what Paul would really say to me was, "David, please take care of Joanna. Please take care of her in a neighborly, you know, like as a neighbor, take care of her." That sounded funny. But you know what I mean. That's what Paul would have said, and that's what he would have said to all of us, right? That's it.
Thanks for making that clear, David. We're going to keep an eye on you, big guy. We're just talking.
So, okay, Paul, you heard so many wonderful things about Paul, and I echo all of them. I made a list, but it was way too long for this event. And Paul was my dearest friend. I really thought of him as a brother. The family was part of my family, and I shared so many things with Paul. I met him over 30 years ago. I had an apartment in New York and an apartment at the marina, and I wanted to rent space out at the marina. I didn't want to give it up, such a great place. Paul walked in, and that smile, that Grimkowski grin, those flashing blue eyes, he called me the next day. He said, "I'd really like to be your roommate." We had a wonderful, wonderful experience. We got to know each other. He was absolutely the greatest guy. He was the truest, my best friend ever. He was just fabulous. And I love you. I love all of you. And I love Paul and Joanna. You'll always be part of our family. So we came out from Colorado for this event. And like all of you, I'm going to miss Paul every day. So love you guys.
Sorry, Sue. Didn't mean to steal your thunder. Thanks, Neil. Good to see you, by the way. Hello, everybody. My name's Liam. I'm Joanne's youngest brother. We have the same father, different mother, a bit younger than her. And I've known, that wasn't the joke. So I've only known Joe as Joe and Paul. It's always just been Joe and Paul. And that's how it's been until last month or 2 months ago. And it's a huge shock because, as everybody in the room knows, Paul was such an amazing guy. And I, grew up with him from, like a teenager to who I am now. And he was all just I always loved going over to their house because of the cooking and all that. But Paul was so funny. I want to just relay a couple stories about that. I mean, he's an amazing guy, and There's so many stories we could tell about moving the window and all the cool stuff that he was into with like a pineapple and the little ocean water from just the right level in the ocean. And he was always up to just absolutely off the wall stuff I'd never heard of. And I always found it really entertaining. But one of the things that he did, which I now do because it works, is that he's big photos, always takes photos everywhere. And as you see on the PowerPoint, one thing he would do, at least in my experience, is he would set up the camera and he'd put the timer on, and then he would run to get into the photo, but he would intentionally stop in front of the camera like he didn't make it there in time. And they were always just the best photos, way better than the ones that were serious, everybody's smiling. But the ones with, like, what does he do? I do it now, and it goes over really well. And another story that happened to me actually kind of recently with Paul, it was in fact the last thing I really did with him. Joanne was dealing with my father's property, and there was a renter there who he really liked it there. He dug in like a tick and didn't want to leave. And he was also kind of sketchy individually. You look at him and it's like, oh God, you could do anything, capable of anything. And so Joe and Paul asked me one day to accompany Paul down there for inspection because they had an agreement that he was supposed to move this stuff out of this area that he wasn't in. And I was supposed to be the muscle, which I thought was hilarious. And so we go down there, and the guy didn't move his stuff, and we just took some photos, and there was no incident. But afterwards, I was sitting at the table in front of Dad's house, and I was like, well, I'm sure glad Glenn wasn't there because, who knows what could have happened. And Paul pulls out a little .38 from his hip. He's like, it wouldn't have been a problem. I wasn't the muscle, I was the human shield. And so he always had a plan, and he didn't let me know until afterwards, which was probably best. And that's it. That's just a couple of the thousands of Paul stories that are that enrich us all. And Paul also, of course, did amazing things for my father's memorial and spoke beautiful words, and I felt I owed it to him to say something at his memorial. He was an amazing guy. He shall be missed.
Okay. All right, I'm supposed to speak up. All right, so that was Joanna's youngest brother. I'm her oldest sister. So here we are, a big family. I was really interested to hear from all of the Gold's Gym people starting out here. I think it's been a couple decades. It's been a long time, and still these people love Paul. I just find that brilliant. And that to me, that right there, that's him. That smile, that laugh, always had this just gorgeous laugh that made me laugh, right? Really beautiful. I also wanted to say that as wonderful as Gold Gym was, and as a big a part of life, his life as it was, that isn't who he was for me. Who he was the kind person that's picking up trash every other week on Topanga Canyon Boulevard. Who does that, right? He's the one who's out feeding the homeless in Santa Monica and getting kicked off by the police because you're only allowed to feed your family. So he makes a big Grimkowski family picnic sign and goes right ahead and keeps feeding the homeless people. Who does that kind of stuff? That's Paul. And I love especially who he was for my sister. And I want to thank all of you for being there for her. This is really hard for me. And he was just my brother-in-law. What about her? So thank you for being there, and please don't stop being there. It's gonna be a long year. Call her. Not every day. Not every day. But often. Send her an email, send her a text, reach out. It's she needs all of us. In watching her through these past about 6 weeks, I think it's been, what's really been lovely is the support from her Grimkowski family and her Gunst family and her Topanga family. She has lots of loving going on around her. And what was interesting to me, I had the privilege of spending a week with her shortly after it happened. And of course, she was sad and it was awful. But she was able to appreciate what she was getting from all of you and from all of you. She didn't just take it as, I've got this loss and I'm due people. No, no, no. She really genuinely appreciated it and it brought her joy. So please keep doing that. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rick Valenti. I didn't really plan on speaking, but the Gold's Gym family, Paul. I came to Gold's in 1981. I didn't know anybody. I had no money. I had a knapsack. I was sleeping in a garage floor, but my passion for bodybuilding was all about you had to be at Gold's Gym. And I met Pete, I met Paul, and Paul helped change my life with Derek, Neil, Rich. I used to go to lunch with your father at the firehouse. We would walk and laugh and have so much fun. Your father was amazing. And Paul got me jobs doing openings for Gold's Gyms. So he would book me all these jobs, and I'm like, Paul, wow, thank you. So I listen to everybody talk about Paul, and you know, we all leave this earth, and when you do, all you have is what people say about you, and listen to what everybody's saying about Paul. He's an amazing person. We're all gonna miss him, and we all love him, but we have to use this as energy for us to enjoy every day we still wake up and get the most out of today. And if you need anything, you please call. If you want to work out, please, I'll get you to the gym. Listen, sometimes working out helps you release anxiety and stuff. You come train with me. I mean, so if you need anything, please call. So I just wanted to say I love Paul, Pete, your father, and Gold's Gym changed my life. So thank you.
Anybody else? Bruce Ebel was another one of our great franchisees that Paul and Rich signed up to the Gold's Gym family. Bruce?
Okay, so first of all, Paul, my life would, same thing with Neil and Derek and everybody else, my life wouldn't be the same without him. He gave me my first franchise. Technically, I already had one because I was partners with Kirk and John Galliani in the 90s, but in 1999, that was the first time I actually got my own franchise, right? Oh, sorry, that better, all right. And I've played a lot of different roles in the Gold's Gym history, but I did interview and spend a lot of time trying to pay tribute to these guys, a lot of which are in the room, and I decided to go out and interview a lot of people and tell this story. And I couldn't, you know, I figured, well, there's like two scales of justice here. One is all the devotion and emotion involved and all the gratitude involved with Gold's Gym and how it changed so many people's lives. And I said, you know, there's got to be the other side of it. There's got to be stories. There's got to be some real stuff, you know, that adds up to how much that I see over on this side. And I thought, well, if that's true, if that math exists, then it's worth it, right? So I spent 5 years of my life doing 500 hours of interviews. Derek gets the award for the longest interview, which was about 9.5 hours straight. Except for your lawn cutting guys that interrupt a little. Pete, though, I had probably 5 interviews, and that was about 28 hours, so imagine that. Anyway, so my life wouldn't be what it would be today, but what happened when I came into this Gold's Gym system, and I kind of learned something today, I knew kind of all these things, but I didn't know them maybe at the same depth as I have. I've just like learned some things being here. And I always knew that the international guys were so devoted to Paul and so grateful because, you know, he gave them a home. And when they'd come into town, they'd talk about how he met them at their gate and he carried their luggage and he put their luggage in their car and he took them to their house and he cooked them a home-cooked meal, you know. And that just kindness, that old-fashioned kindness was really embedded in Golds, right? And I didn't realize maybe that he got like so much credit for that. You know, underneath it all, you can't tell what the currents are. And what I did is try to figure out what the beliefs are of all these people that are like-minded people that are so grateful to this experience of being part of Golds. And Paul deserves his place in that realm where the kindness and the compassion, you know, really, people knew that it was part of it, right? And I think he's kind of the epicenter of that because he was a purist in a sense, right? And you know that, you know, Pete, we've talked, he's like, you know, he always wanted to help everybody, almost to a fault, you know? And so he, I think, gets that spot in all of our lives and so many other people around the world, you know, that had their lives changed, E.G. and all these people that we all know in our group, you know, amazing. I did a couple of notes. I don't like notes at all, but I just didn't want to forget a couple of things. The family and the kindness and the idea of home, I know that there are a lot of franchisees that came into the system that basically were adopted. You know, they found these people that knew something and knew where they were going, and they became adopted, and Paul's a good example of adopting people, right? And I'd be one of those people. You talk about a great chef. Well, a great chef has to also understand the ingredients. He was one of the ingredients in what happened, right? And you can't have a great recipe unless you stick to the ingredients. And this was sort of part of my process, was trying to figure out what were all these ingredients all about that made so much magic happen. And his place in there is absolutely critical to what happened. And he is one of those key ingredients. And it represents something different than everybody else, you know, because of the way he lived and what he stuck to. He knew he knew the game he was playing, in my opinion. And it was a different game than the rest of us, in a sense. You know, he gave so much to people and always wanted to do that. Joe Gold, his place, his ingredient was, he built equipment to last for 1,000 years. He built friendships to last 1,000 years. If you met Joe Gold and he decided you were his friend, then that was it for the rest of your life. And I think Paul understood that probably very, you know, not just subliminally, but in the front of his mind. And I think he also was that person to the people that he met. I'm kind of tying the whole system here and everything that went on, you know, with where he fits on our side of things, you know, with the Gold side. And of course, the humble, the hard work, the sense of contribution was always a part of his life. And Gold's Gym wouldn't be anything without the hard work. And I think I'm just going to close by saying there are only so many people on this earth that are so lucky to have true love, and experiencing today no greater gift. So Joanna, my condolences, and also celebration of who Paul was. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. And he's right, Joanna. I mean, every guy knows, you know, their guy friends that have picked a winner. You know, somebody we all respect. We very much love and respect you. Paul did good. Anybody else here in the room that would like to say anything? Any more Joanna siblings that would like to talk about guns on? That was great. I love that. There's always one guy in the group. I remember Paul and I were so drunk, we went to a petting zoo and we sat there nude feeding the animals. Yeah, right, exactly. So anybody want to talk about their experience with Paul in prison? Just. Okay. No, that was beautiful. A lot of great stories. I mean, I can hear Paul laughing. And it's like, God, I know he's enjoying this. I know it. I believe it. I feel it in my heart. And this is what is worth it. So, doesn't matter if you're with Gold's Gym or anything. If you have any kind of story you would like to share, you're welcome to come up here before we turn it over to all our friends on Zoom. Joanna, should we do that? Okay. So we have, Joanna had sent out a email that told some of our Gold's Gym family that we were going to be doing this. So they're online with the link. And so Joanna's going to sit there with the computer and pick certain people to speak. I think we'll see everybody on the screen. Is that it? Right. And what we want you to do, all those on the Zoom call, you don't have to say anything, but if you do want to speak, there's a little, on the bottom middle, I think it is, there's a thing that says raise your hand. Okay, on the middle of your screen, on the bottom, just click on raise your hand and Joanna will call on you. Okay? Let's give this a try and see how we do. I'm sorry, what?
Put them on the screen.
If they don't have a dark jacket and a turquoise shirt, they cannot speak. You had to get the memo. As we're figuring this out, you're welcome, the bartender's still out there. If you want to get a drink, you're welcome to. Bathroom break.
Well, how many people turn the camera on?
Could be, yeah. Yeah, it may take a while for us to click, but it'll eventually happen. Here we go. We got one? Okay, here we go. Beautiful. Yeah.
Hello? Hi, my name's Dr. Ray Wisniewski, and I can tell you, Paul took me under his wings. I have a funny thing. I heard his brother-in-law talk about, he pulled out a gun, sort of knew there wasn't going to be any trouble. I was out and I had to have a business meeting in California. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I fly out there. First of all, Paul said, I said, where am I going to stay? Paul said, you're going to stay with me, which was the most incredible experience. One reason was because of course, because of the food. There was Max talked about the coyotes. We had Wiley came down and there's Paul feeding Wiley. But we went around and just the stories that Paul told. It was just an adventure. And at the same time I was out there, the attorney, Scott Johansson, was there. We had just a great time. Everything was fantastic. But I just want to talk about just how Paul cared. And he cared about me, cared about our company when we needed it the very, very most. Is when Paul just really came through, just has always helped us. But I just want to talk about one thing. So we were looking to expand, and we were in a shopping, a shopping mall, and and we walked over to look at a place, and all of a sudden Paul goes back. He says, "Hold on, wait a second." And he goes back to the car, pops up the trunk, and he pulls out a crowbar. And I said, "Paul, what are you doing?" He goes, "This again. This just happened 2 weeks ago. This just happened a couple of weeks ago," I think he said. And I said, "What?" He said, "Some guy," and it was really hot out. It was a hot day, hot California day. He said, "Some guy just left his dog in his car with the windows up." He says, "Look at that. This dog's suffering." He says, "I'm going to bust the windows out." And it was, and I said, "Oh my gosh." And here goes Paul over, and the guy came out yelling about this. Because he's going to break out the window. And he says he's going to call the police. And actually, I think the police did come. The thing was, the guy got in trouble because of the fact that you can't be doing that. But it was just how Paul cared, and he cared about us, cared about the company, just the way that he was, the way that he dealt with individuals, and it's made it just so nice. And life is always about creating moments. And I can tell you this, Paul just created moments back to back to back to back. And it's when you think back in life, you think about those moments, and he just created a ton of moments. And I'm just so thankful that God somehow put Paul in my life, in my path, and brought us and brought him into to my life. And I just want to say thank you, Paul. Thank you, Joanna.
Hello, how's this now, Joanna?
That's better.
Okay, great. But just as I was saying that Paul, on one of my trips out to California, Paul had asked if I wanted to go to this sort of, it was a self-improvement called Landmark Education. And, you know, he was not just said, "Why don't you come?" And I thought, okay, I'll come and I'll, go for the experience and so forth. And I did. Now, going to Landmark Education with Paul and how he just made these connections and help people, that changed my life. Not because so much what I got out of Landmark Education, but it did move me enough to when I got back to Fort Lauderdale, I decided to go to a Landmark Education, session. And wouldn't you know, who do I meet there but my own Joanna? And that's where I met my wife, who's my wife now. And it was really Paul's connection to get me to go there, to come back, to go to Landmark. And there was my Joanna waiting for me. So I always will thank Paul and be grateful for that. Thank you.
Hello.
Iron Dawn, go ahead.
Hi. Well, I'm wearing this, okay? First of all, I want to say hi to everybody there that I know. This is Ian from the Dominican Republic. And I had to talk today because even though we're miles and thousands of miles away, I'm there with you guys. I'm there for my friend Paul, which I consider him like my father. When I started Gold's Gym, I was very young, very ambitious. And he always extended his hand to me. And starting with that story, he went to the airport to pick my luggage. I was one of them. And he also cooked the famous rosemary steak for me too. And Joanna, you were like family to me. And I was always grateful to learn. I was getting into the industry that I didn't know anything about, but I just needed Paul. That's all I needed, because he gave me his friendship, He taught me everything. He communicated everything that I needed to know. He put me in contact with people that knew the industry. I built some strong friendships, like Derek Barton, my dear friend, even though he looks very old, but he's still my friend. I miss you guys. I miss all of you guys. Pete and everybody always have that big smile every time we attended to the convention. And they were very proud for us to have the little flag in the small Dominican Republic in the Caribbean. But for me, it was very special because the way Paul treated me, especially for him. And I was very happy to put my investment in just for him. And through him, I got to love golds more than the famous brand was the famous people behind it. And he was the heart of the company. And we all felt it that way. So I wish you, Joanna, that just you know that he made an impact all over the world. And he made an impact in me, in my family, in my friends, in my country. We built 12 gyms here. We changed lives for over 50,000 people in the Dominican Republic, people that not even know that Paul was who he was. But rest for sure, they will always know Paul through us, through his everything he built, and we are just an extension of him. And our part now is, even though he's not in the earth anymore, he will be through us. So I love you guys. Thank you for having me here. It's been an honor for me to talk and to always remember my friend that every time he looked at me and we met each other in Irsa, whatever, he always says these expressions. I love you guys. I love you back, my friend. Thank you. God bless you.
Okay, so we have no more people with their hands up. So what I'd like to do is just read a message here from Toni Krugland, who was Paul's first wife. She's just a lovely woman from Sweden. Her message is, Peggy, Pete, Karen, and Christy, I'm so sorry for your, or rather our loss. Joanna, all my love to you. Paul, I'll sure miss you. You've been part of my life for 40 years and you will stay with me forever. Kisses, Toni. That's.
Hey, Rich, can you get everybody back in? We're going to end it here. Thanks, Murray, for helping us, Neil. You guys are great. Thanks for making that whole Zoom thing happen. You know, those of you that just heard Ian Rondon speak, I mean, what a great guy. I mean, he's from the Dominican Republic, and every time he'd come to the Gold's Gym conventions, he'd bring me a box of cigars with my name on each cigar. I mean, wow. And then it seemed like it was just a few years ago that, you know, I reached out to Ian and I said, hey, my aunt and uncle who I love, they're coming to the Dominican Republic, you know, to meet, you know, some business people. Love for you to, you know, meet them and say hi. He couldn't have been a more gracious host. Took care of him. Just, I mean, that's the beauty of the Gold's Gym family. We're all here for each and every one of us. And I want to close it out here, you know, with Joanna come up here. And again, once this, I don't care what we do for the rest of the day, what we do even tomorrow, next week, but man, I can't think of anything, you know, that really hits the heart more than this event. I mean, this is what America's all about. This is what the world is all about. This kind of heart and soul, this kind of friendships and family. I mean, my God, this is what we live for. And when one of us goes, this is how we act. We miss them terribly. There's no takeovers. We don't really have a clue when it's going to happen. It sucks. We never know when our time's up. But God damn it, Joanne, I hope you know how much we love you and how much we love him.
Okay, this has been such an amazing, I'm okay, I think, outpouring of love and appreciation for Polly, and I am just overwhelmed with what everyone said. I thank each and every one of you, both here and on Zoom, for showing up for him in this way. And I hope each of you know how much Polly valued and loved each one of you. But I also want to be sure to thank those of us, or those of you, yeah, those of us who helped so much with supporting me emotionally and in your generosity. So thank you to Bill and Gail for generously offering this beautiful Mountain Mermaid for our venue. It was always one of Paul's favorite places. We went to so many great events here. Thank you to Derek for emceeing with such grace and wit, as always, and for your brilliant emotional support over these last couple of months. Thank you. Thank you to Pete for being there for me and for generously helping to pay for this event. I appreciate that. Thank you to Christy, Peggy, and Karen for all of your support, encouragement, and love that has helped me more than you know. And to Gail for the beautiful decorating. I appreciate that you took that on for me. To Jenny, my lifetime BFF, for the amazing slideshow video, for always being there for me, being my support. She's always got my back. Thank you to my family, friends, and community for cradling me and keeping me mostly sane during this difficult journey through extreme grief. Remember, hug your loved ones every day because you never know. So goodbye. Thank you.